Nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Brumbaugh? Here. Mr. Press?
Here.
Dr. Hinkleman? Here. Mrs. Kim Parsons is absent. Mr. Diaz?
Here. Hearing of the public. Is there anybody here that would wish to speak to the board? If not, I will skip. Okay, we've got one. Give me a moment. How to address the Board of Education Policy 169.1. To speak to items on the agenda, hearing of the public is the time provided for public participation during board meetings. The presiding officer of the board will recognize anyone wishing to speak to an item on the agenda. How to be recognized and what to do when recognized. When it is your turn to address the board, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized by the presiding officer. State your name and address. Address board members as a group. Guidelines for public input. The Board of Education members may ask clarifying questions. The presiding officer may use his or her discretion, recognizing speakers more than once on the same subject. Individual remarks shall not exceed 3 minutes unless the presiding officer grants additional time. The presiding officer may rule repetitive statements out of order. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. No person may address or question board members individually. Go ahead.
I'm Tracy, 201 Wright Road. I was just curious if, my son said that they are not going to be able to do government days for government class this year. And the reason they were told is because there was no transportation, but they asked if they could either drive themselves there, because they're pretty much all seniors but one, or walk, because, I mean, field trips walk down to the park, so.
I will let Dr. Ritchie answer that because I don't know anything about it.
And maybe you guys don't know anything about it at all.
Well, we do actually, but I had thought that there was some transportation between sites during the day. I wasn't aware that they could walk to every location.
I don't know. I just know that I've seen them riding around in municipal trucks before, so my husband said, have the police come and get them and give them a ride in the back of the truck or car, because that's what they do part of the day anyway. But I just know my daughter, when she did that, I mean, she's talked to people after, like, college and whatever, and it's just a really neat thing that most students don't get to do. So her friends have always thought it was neat, and she just appreciated the experience. So.
Yeah, if there's...
But like my son's willing to take whoever, I mean, obviously. Obviously you guys can't like prove that per se, but I mean, if they can provide their own transportation too, there's cool.
Yeah, so there are steps to take if students were going to self-transport, and self-transport can happen, and maybe they do this all the time. I mean, I'm sure they do it all the time, but we can't approve students to drive with other students.
Right.
So, maybe there's a way to do it without district transportation, whether it's a walking field trip or, parent-family transport or student transport with the proper documentation. So, we can check that out. But the reason why, I didn't even really think about any of those things was because I think where students, and maybe I'm wrong about this, where they started off in the morning and then where they were after lunch were different sites. So I was under the impression that district transportation took care of getting students to the different sites over the course of the day or two. Well, I guess we'll find out.
Okay. All right. That's all.
Thank you.
So Brad, you're going to look into that and make sure if they can do it, then we can make it happen for the kids.
Yeah, if they could do this field trip without district transportation, we'll see if we can make that happen.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, 3 superintendent report. Brad, do you have anything other than the presentation?
Just before you get the presentation started, two things. Our elementary staff members are pretty excited about having been named in the 2025 Governor's Recognition Program for the Science of Reading. The elementary school was one of 47 schools across the state that were recognized. There's a set of criteria that were outlined by the Department of Education and Workforce. So folks are really excited about the efforts that have taken place in pushing literacy achievement in the elementary. And second, the Bulldog Bash over the weekend, after the weather kind of cooperated, it really took off. So we had a great crowd in the cafeteria and in the gym, and participation in all the activities. It was nice to see members of our community enjoying one another during that time. So it's one of two fundraisers for the Education Foundation. The big one is coming up at the beginning of June, the Bulldog Classic. But we had a good day on Saturday, so just wanted to mention that as well.
Good. All right, if you want to pull up the PowerPoint, I'm going to give a somewhat brief. We'll get started. Maybe. All right, if you want to get to the first slide, please. All right, this is what current financial factors that are impacting the district. So Milton has not passed a new operating money since 2008. This is the 1.25% income tax that was, the majority of it was to go to the construction, paid for the construction of the school. 1/10 of that 1.25% earned income tax can be used for operating expenses, but it's a very small amount. That was originally done to pay for the potential increase in costs associated with operating the new school building. The most recent new money, operating new money levy, was passed in 2003. Do you remember what the millage was for that?
I think that was 10 mils, around 10 mils.
Okay. Due to House Bill 920, without new construction or property additions, tax collected on real estate does not increase from what was originally approved by the voters. So a house that was already built and taxes levied upon it at the time the levy passed, realizing any additional tax revenue as a result of the construction. It's usually going to take around 6 years to see collections after a home is built. Now, we are seeing a minor amount of revenue from the improvement of the lots, but it's a very small amount. Next slide, please. So what are we looking at here in May of 2025? It's going to be a 5-year 0.75% earned income tax levy. The Ohio Department of Taxation estimates, if passed, the levy will generate approximately $1.8 million. Collections on the levy would begin in 2026. No additional funds from this levy will be received during the 2025 school calendar year.
Ben, real quick, back on that slide, and maybe Carrie, you can answer this, but what is 3 1/4 earned income tax like on a house for $100,000?
What's in income?
Like, yes.
So this would be an income tax, so it would not be on your property. So if you figure, if you make,
Just to give people an idea.
if you make $50,000 a year, that would be $375 additional dollars, okay?
So
showing 100,000 and 750.
Perfect.
I believe you got paid twice a month. You can do it on your calculator. I think it's like $28 per pay.
So if you did on $50,000, that's what I had up on my on my calculator already. You did $50,000, 0.75%. If you're paid 2 times out of the month, that's an additional $15.63 per pay.
Okay, thanks.
All right, next slide, please. So how does Milton-Union Schools per pupil revenue and spending compare to the state average? Well, Milton-Union residents contribute 33% less local revenue for school operations than the state average. State funding continues to decline. Milton-Union receives 7% less funding per pupil and spends 12% less on each student than the state average. If you look at the chart here, it shows our forecasted revenue on the top line. This does not take into account passage of the May levy, but in fiscal year 2027, we are deficit spending to the tune of $394,000. So even with the cuts we've made so far, that does not get us out of the hole. Next slide, please. So this chart here shows Milton compared to the other Miami County schools. It shows anticipated revenue, decrease in revenue through 2027. As you can see, some schools are seeing increases in revenue, some schools are seeing decreases in revenue. We are seeing a decrease in revenue to the tune of $485,000 in change. So that is, figured in with what we are planning. Next slide, please. This next slide shows funding comparisons for schools similar to our size. If you look to the right, again, this is a change from 2024 to 2027 in revenue. Very few of them are seeing an increase, but the majority of them are seeing a decrease.
Mr. Diaz?
Yes.
So the state, just to clarify here, the state has and you can look this up on the Ohio Department of Education's website. They have a methodology for identifying similar districts to your own. And, it goes across a number of different metrics. Actually, the list there, like Fairless Local is the district that is most like Milton-Union, and so it's in descending order after that. And if you go through that interface on the state's website, I think you come up with about 20 schools. So that's just the first 8 or so. And including this, I think, in the board's presentation is important because often our residents would like to compare us to other schools in the county. And sometimes, our metrics and their metrics don't necessarily show that we have a whole lot in common with them. So these are school districts that the names aren't familiar to us, but according to the state's methodology, these are the most similar districts to us in the state.
Carrie, can you elaborate on why they're seeing decrease in funding in the majority of similar sized school districts?
So I'd like to kick back to this last slide real quick and just kind of draw some attention to maybe like a local district that I have a little bit more information on. So what you're kind of seeing here, one of the surprising factors to me was if you look at Newton, who's just to the north of us, they have less students than what we have, nearly half, or more than half of what we have. And over the course of the 3 years, you can see that they're getting an increase of $1.3 million, where Milton is seeing a decrease. One of the factors, and this is just many of factors, I know Justin, I've sent you the the reports that generate each time we get a foundation payment from the state. And in this example, basically what they're saying is the local capacity in Newton, or in other words, what the state perceives the community being able to pay per student, they're showing that Newton has a lower capacity than what Milton has. So therefore, the state's going to support them a little bit more in this funding formula for the biennium budget.
In that capacity is based on the, what's a good term for it?
It's based on the income of the residents there, an average over the last 3 years, property values that are assessed.
So it's based on the ability of the community to pay for the taxes, the additional revenue needed to support a school district.
Yes. So in order to look, I would have to dig deeper. Unfortunately, I'm not too familiar, maybe New Lebanon a little bit. I'm not too familiar with any of these. I'd have to look further into, kind of what their local capacity is, what their enrollment trends are, and such. So.
Mr. Beck, are you able to see this on?
I actually have the PowerPoint.
You have the
on.
PowerPoint? Oh, good, good.
Mhm.
And Carrie, you'll stop me if I've got this wrong, but I think it's important to note that we have more students than 1,320. Our dollars, the dollars follow the student in programming, so if a student is enrolled in College Credit Plus, if a student is attending the Career Center, those dollars follow the student. Sometimes the dollars follow the student to another classroom in our own building. So satellite programs for MVCTC that are in-house, the funding follows the student. So that just kind of whittles away at the total number of people that we're serving under a roof. So that's how the state comes up with 1,320. That's not how many students we have running around.
Right.
I only mention that because sometimes people think that we could get by on less money because we have fewer students or enrollment is declining, but that's just not the case.
Let's go on to, So, as a result of the 3 failed levy attempts in November 23, March 24, and November 24, the Board of Education implemented cost-saving measures effective with the 2024-25 school year, including consolidating the district to one daily time schedule, allowing increased efficiencies in teacher services across the district, increases in activity, athletic, and instructional fees, staffing reductions, and restrictions affecting the number of students and families eligible for district-provided transportation, also known as busing. These measures returned $1.25 million to the current 5-year forecast. But again, the district still anticipates deficit spending in fiscal year 2027. And I don't think people realize how much of a saving the consolidation has done for the district. It's allowed teachers to work across. We're fortunate with this building that we're all connected. We don't have a elementary on one campus, middle school on another campus, and high school on another campus. So some teachers are licensed to teach in the elementary, middle school, and high school, or 2 or 3, or just 1 of the 3. With having the one bell, it allows teachers to share work in classrooms at different levels of the school. Next slide, please. Whether the May income tax request passes or not, the district expects to make an additional $350,000 in cuts through the following consolidation of positions, decreasing administrative staffing levels, retirement, attrition, and reduction in force, and decreases in curriculum resources. In sum, the district will have made a total of $1.6 million in reductions. Next slide, please. If the income tax levy passes in May, the board will increase bus services in the 2025-26 school year, hire an additional school counselor at Milton-Union High School, and undertake the controlled return of staffing levels and services following receipt of new monies. The BOE intends to utilize currently generated PI funds to pay off school construction debt earlier than anticipated. Do you want to talk on that?
Yeah. So, I guess from the 20,000 view, when we were trying to get our hands around how to get this district moving forward, more financially sound, it becomes clear if you're used to looking at income versus expenses statements. You have the expense side, which is constantly growing through inflationary pressure. You have the revenue side, which is basically stagnant and decreasing at times. The one aspect of the revenue side that has seen pretty steady increasement was on the income tax side, which was a good thing, right? The problem is that is forced to go into permanent improvement side, not the operating side. And we originally, and I've looked at this every way I can think of to try to peel off some of that revenue towards the operating. But it kept coming back to when we built this school, the bonds were issued with that caveat at the bottom that they were going to be backed by the revenue of the income tax and the allocation of it, the 94%, 6% split. And try as we may, we can't get around it. We've tried. We have to reissue the debt as a possibility. It's expensive and interest rates are higher than we are locked in at. So it'd be a lose for the district in the short term and long term. So we explored several paths, and it became it's handcuffing the district as far as the revenue coming in. It became obvious we need to reorient revenue, and to do that, we needed to set off a plan to pay the debt off ahead of schedule. By paying the debt off ahead of schedule, we can then go back to the voters and say, hey, we would like to reallocate the income tax. So it'd be a new income tax, and we could change the formula inside of it, and it would no longer be tied to the bonds because they'd be paid off, and we could put more money going into the operating side of the equation. So which would better balance the revenue streams coming into the district that are having some growth to them to keep up with the inflation on the expense side. With the goal being to set the district on a path for the next decade or more with the money to operate at a level where we can compete against surrounding public schools. So to get there, we need a bridge. That bridge is the 3/4% income tax for 5 years to give us the time to collect the income tax coming in for the next several years and then pay the bonds off early. They were scheduled to be paid off fully in 2037. I think we can accomplish it in 4 to 5 years. I've ran the numbers. We have a table. We are going to have to watch what we spend in the PI fund. We're going to have to tighten down to do this, but I think for the district, it's the best game plan. It releases the handcuffs off of us so we can come back, reallocate that income tax, funnel more of the money into the operating side, still keep enough money going into permanent improvements for repairs on the building, the possibility coming down of needing more space, and there's a need for that now, but I think it could be a bigger need in the near future if houses keep going up. So that's how we got there. And our goal is to eliminate that debt within 5 years. So when this, if it passes, and we hope it passes, it would be up for renewal in 5 years. At that point, we could go for one new income tax, because we would have two at that point, go for one new one, reallocate the division of that income tax to permanent improvements and operating funds, and move forward going that way with both sides, both buckets of money being healthy for the district. So that's how we got to this scenario.
Thanks for your input. Next slide, please. So what happens if the earned income tax levy fails? Will be a reduction in the number of advanced placement, college credit plus, and upper level coursework taught by Milton-Union teaching staff members. There'll be reduced instructional supply and material costs by reassessing curriculum purchases. Eliminate the school resource officer position. Keep in mind, we still have a school security officer position in the school, so that person, that that person will remain. We will impose fees for outside or community use of Milton-Union facilities and fields, which I know it has been implemented somewhat, but it will be implemented more. Next slide, please. The participation fees will be increased. It'll be $200 per sport activity at the high school and $180 per sport activity at the middle school with no family cap. We will eliminate district-provided transportation to OHSAA-sponsored athletic events, as well as all extracurricular and co-curricular activities. We will reduce the number of paid supplemental, athletic, co-curricular, and extracurricular positions by 38. And we will eliminate any current 9th grade athletic team or future 9th grade athletic teams.
Then when you say athletic teams for 9th grade, are you referring to just like a freshman only team?
Correct.
So would only leave JV and varsity? So the
That's correct.
freshmen would be playing JV or varsity. Okay.
Next slide. Yep. Elimination of student clubs and activities, including but not limited to the following: Science Olympiad, Quiz Bowl, Power of the Pen, Envirothon, National Honor Society, National Junior Honor Society, Geography Club, Art Club, Middle School and High School Drama Club, Middle School Student Council, Bulldog Pride, Yearbook, and Varsity M. So, the district's capital plan includes the following: pay off the construction debt, as Justin mentioned, within the next 3 to 5 years. This would be 7 to 8 years earlier than anticipated, and this would eliminate the construction debt. With the debt gone, the district can replace the existing 1.25% earned income tax levy, so dollars generated can be used for operating expenses. As I mentioned earlier, only 1/10 of the percent of that 1.25% earned income tax can be used for operating expenses. If we replace it, we can funnel is probably not a good word, but we can allocate a larger percentage of that 1.25% towards operating. That, and then we can let the 0.75% that is, if it passes in May, to fall off. That's it.
So this slide is just a reiteration of what is on the ballot.
Yeah, again, it's 0.75% earned income tax levy this May. 1.8, Ohio Department of Taxation estimates if passed, the levy will generate $1.8 million, and collection will begin in 2026. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions out in the audience?
Does the elimination of freshmen, you said ninth grade sports, that would be eliminated?
Correct.
Does that apply to band too?
I don't, is there a ninth grade?
No, there's not a ninth grade only band.
No.
So, I mean, ninth graders would be able to participate on the JV team and the varsity team. So similarly, ninth grade students can participate in the marching band.
We're going to get the PowerPoint on the website or uploaded somewhere?
Yes.
There'll be an informational flyer on the website regarding what was just discussed.
Both.
The PowerPoint will be as well?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Does anybody else on the board have want to provide any input or have any questions?
I want to reiterate, I don't want to beat it to death, but how crucial it is to give us this 0.75% to put the capital plan in place so that we can pay off the construction debt, which will get us to a point where we then can replace that income tax levy with a new one with a better allocation that will fund the operating side of the school while keeping the permanent improvements side with enough money to do what we need to do as a district. We just need that time to collect and then pay off the bonds early. The other side of that is, if you're sitting in our shoes up here, there is no easy cut left, and there's not much left. We're picking at bones, and it's getting super difficult because there is amount of, I don't want to say some cost, but there's a certain amount of money it takes just to run a school bare bones to the state minimums, and we're there. There's just nothing, there's not anything left. It's pretty obvious we're trying to hang on to sports as best as we can.
Well, not just sports, I mean all extracurricular.
And co-curriculars, but the point I'm making is that you can see what's coming down the road. When you run out of things, there's only so much left that you can take out of the budget. I said, I think a year ago, that we'll never cut our way out of this. We've developed a plan that can get us out of this situation. We just need to enact it, and we're gonna get it done. If you give us this 5-year, 0.75%, we're gonna get it done. Because if we don't, we have to come back to you to renew it or do something else. So we have to get it accomplished.
All right, good statement. Let's get moving on. Treasurer's report, approval of the Board of Education minutes, March 4th, 2025, special meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a second. Second. Roll call, please.
Dr. Hinkleman?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mrs. Brumbaugh?
Abstain.
Mr. Hughes?
Yes. B, approval of February financial report. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Okay, we'll go ahead and jump right into this. This is for information for the month of February. The first part of this is going to be cumulative results from the start of the fiscal year back in July. As you can see, I'm sorry, lost my train of thought. The actual amount for the month of February was for the balance of the general fund was $4,029.52. You can see that's slightly lower than what we were anticipating, and we have some information as to why that is occurring. Revenues were just a little bit lower than we were expecting, and expenses were a little bit higher, so coupled with that, that's what's causing the variance, obviously. So the details behind that, as you can see, we'll come down here into the notes. So we are watching the grants, or I'm sorry, the foundation money that is coming in from the state on line 1.035 of the 5-year forecast. Just a small note, the casino revenue came in like, I think it was $2,000 less than what we were forecasting. Nothing huge, but just worth mentioning. And as we were stating, kind of before the meeting, there's so many factors that are calculated into the foundation payment, and all of these can cause fluctuations. So we'll take a deeper dive into that for the May forecast approval. All of their operating revenue, I was talking to Justin about this, kind of watching the inflation rate, which for your own personal pocketbook, you want the inflation rate to stay down a little bit. But from my position, I like the interest revenue that comes in. So I kind of did a quick graph of the Fed's attempts to get that inflation rate below the 3%. They didn't quite accomplish it in, they got right at 3% at the end of calendar year 24. So I spent so much time trying to find all the data, I thought I'd put a little graph in there. Actual revenues for February were $30,000 or less than 0.5% lower than budgeted. Moving on to expenses. Again, purchase services has been a line that we are heavily watching. And as I stated in the last meeting, the amount that we paid to the Miami County ESC for the services that they provide, you are now starting to see that line item go over budget due to the increases that the district needed. Again, supplies and materials are still remaining under budget. I believe that we'll still need that money to stay there, but we're definitely going to reevaluate it, and hopefully that's a decrease that we can make for the May forecast. Expenditures for February and cumulatively were 0.14% higher than budgeted. That coupled with the slight decrease in revenue, the cash balance for the general fund was at $4,029,000, or just over 1% lower than forecasted. The cash summary report that shows all the fund balances. Here are all the cash balances for each one of the bank accounts that we have. Just looking at this graph down here, there is going to be a resolution that I'm going to ask you guys to approve to go ahead, and as these maturities start to occur within our CDs and government bonds, we're going to go ahead and allow that money to sit into the another Star Ohio account, which you can see the average, can't point my finger, but the average of 4.14% on those yields is sitting under the Star Ohio account, which is sitting at 4.5%. So as these amounts down here in the government bonds start to mature, we're going to go ahead and kick it into a second Star Ohio account.
To elaborate on that reason is because we want to position ourselves that our funds are not tied up in CDs that have a term, and and the interest rates in the Star Ohio account are pretty close to those CDs, what revenue they generate. So it puts us in a better position to when we have the funds to pay off this construction debt, we can pay it off. That way it's not tied up in 20 different CDs, and we're waiting on those to mature before we can pay them off.
Yeah, so in other words, the cash flow would be a little more liquid versus tied up in those bonds. Okay. The cafeteria account, expenditures were a little bit higher than revenues, but the account is still remaining in the black with a cash balance. It looks like it's just under $250,000, that yellow line there up at the top. And then, of course, these are all the checks checks and expenses that we cut out of our accounts.
questions? Roll call then.
Mrs. Brumbaugh?
Yes.
Dr. Hinkleman?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mr. Diaz?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
5, other special reports, MUEA.
None this evening.
6, agenda confirmation, A, additions and deletions to the agenda. Do we have any additions or deletions?
It was under item C, under new business. We had a slight typo in that resolution for IEP Anywhere. We had an extra decimal at the end there, so we went ahead. It should read $2,745.60, not 60.36.
Is that corrected on the
It has
published
a,
It's
agenda?
corrected on the, yeah,
yes,
what you're looking at.
minor letters.
Okay. Approval of agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Brumbaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Dr. Hinkleman?
Yes.
Mr. Diaz?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Old business. Justin and I were speaking about something that we feel was left out of the presentation. I'll let Justin elaborate on that.
So, as we're trying to pay the construction of this property off ahead of schedule, we were looking at ways to find money to help basically build our debt war chest, for lack of a better term. And one item that we have kind of kicked around before is to sell the Wright Road property. So we
The old school.
the old elementary school. We've had it appraised. It's just finalizing that, but we can then take the proceeds from that and put it with the other PI money to pay off the debt early. We still have to work through the high school practice field because one of my hang-ups on it has been moving that might create a bigger expense than keeping that. So we might maybe not sell that small portion, sell the other 10 or 11 acres. But we still have to work through that, but that is one thing that we are in the process of working through. The other thing is just, we will probably have to, if we initiate this action plan with the passage of the 5-year, is possibly slow down some of the longer term buying of assets like school buses and stuff like that. But one thing we are going to do is try to reduce the number of those vehicles we have sitting because we have to maintain them, we have to get them in rotation, we have to change the oil on them, we have to get them passed by the state. So having a whole lot of extra spares just doesn't make sense at this time. So those were two items that we've kind of put into this 5-year capital plan to try to get the district back headed in the right direction. So I thought it was worth noting that.
And Justin, if you sell that land, it can only go to the PI.
Right, which would go
Which-
towards what the capital needed to pay off the
Correct.
construction
Yes,
debt.
yeah, I'm just saying
I
for
mean,
yeah,
clarification.
The big hang up is like the football team, the practice area, and where can we move it, how much would it cost, and not eating up the profit from selling that. And we're not all the way through. I've been working with Curtis with aerial shots and trying to get acreage right, but we are working through it, and I could see that happening. So,
All right, any other old business? New business appropriations modifications. Recommend approval of increases/decreases in total appropriations for fiscal year 2025 as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please.
Dr. Hinkleman?
Yes.
Mrs. Brumbaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
yes.
Mr. Diaz?
Yes. B, tax year 2025 rates and amounts. Recommend accepting amounts and rates as determined by the Miami County Budget Commission for the year 2025 and authorizing necessary tax levies and certification to the Miami County Auditor per information from the Miami County Auditor. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Brumbaugh?
Yes.
Dr. Hinkleman?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mr. Diaz?
Yes. C, Meta contracts. Recommend renewal of contracts with Meta Solutions for core services, which include SIS support for Power School, EMIS support, purchasing co-op membership, and fiscal support in the amount of $29,370, and IEP Anywhere Plus in the amount of $2,745 and is this 60
It
cents?
should be 60.
For fiscal year 2026. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Dr. Hinkleman?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mrs. Brumbaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Diaz?
Yes. D, consent calendar. Recommend approval of all matters listed under the consent calendar. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Brumbaugh?
Yes.
Dr. Hinkleman?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mr. Diaz?
Yes. Nine, other authorizations, resolutions, etc. A, intend to realize additional savings in fiscal year 2026 and beyond. Resolution regarding intent to realize additional savings in fiscal year 26 and beyond. Whereas the Milton-Union Exempted Village School District has not passed a new money operating levy since 2008, and whereas the financial limitations on the district have continued to increase following the failure of levies placed on the November 2023 ballot, March 2024 ballot, and November 2026 ballot, or 24 ballot, and whereas the Board of Education implemented cost-saving measures effective with the 2024-25 school year, including consolidating the district to one daily time schedule, allowing increased efficiencies in teacher services across the district, increasing student activity, athletic, and instructional fees, reducing staff, and implementing restrictions affecting the number of students and families eligible for district-provided transportation, returning $1.25 million to the current 5-year forecast, but continuing the district deficit spending in fiscal year 2027. And whereas the Board of Education has determined the financial condition of the district requires it to effectuate additional cost-saving measures in an amount of $350,000 in fiscal year 26 to sustain the operations of the district to the fullest extent possible. And whereas even if the May 2025 ballot issue passes, the district would not receive funds generated by that levy until 2026. And whereas if the May 2025 ballot issue does not pass, the district would have insufficient funds to continue its current operations, necessitating the consideration of additional reductions in courses, staffing, and activities, necessitating the implementation of additional cost-saving measures. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Education of the Milton-Union Exempted Village School District that it will be taking the following actions in fiscal year 25 to realize savings in fiscal year 2026. Suspending the employment contract of the elementary assistant principal, saving $123,505 in salary and benefit costs, reducing and consolidating classified staff positions and/or hours in the board office, saving $62,798 in salary and benefit costs, discontinuing the provision of literacy coach services, contracted service through the Miami County ESC, saving $65,000, declining to fill the vacant position part-time clinic aide, saving $14,469.05 in salary and benefits, saving approximately $56,000 in salary and benefits costs through retirements and attrition, eliminating the strength and conditioning supplemental position, saving $27,500.19 in salary and benefit costs, and sell unused and underused district assets with the direction of the Board of Education. Be it further resolved by the Board of Education of the Milton-Union Exempted Village School District that it will review the following cost-saving measures for action upon a failure of the May 2025 ballot issue to avoid additional deficit spending in fiscal year 2026 and beyond. A, reducing the number of advanced placement, college credit plus, and upper level coursework taught by Milton-Union teaching staff members. B, reducing athletics, co-curricular, and extracurricular activities overall. C, doubling athletic and extracurricular student fees to $200 per sport / activity, high school, and $180 per sport activity, middle school, with no cap on the fees charged to a family. D, eliminating district-provided transportation to OHSAA sponsored athletic events and all extracurricular and co-curricular activities. E, reducing 38 paid supplemental athletic, co-curricular, and extracurricular contracts. F, eliminate 9th grade athletic teams. G, eliminate student clubs and activities, including but not limited to Science Olympiad, Quiz Bowl, Power of Pen, Envirothon, National Honor Society, National Junior Honor Society, Geography Club, Art Club, Middle School, High School Drama Club, Middle School Student Council, Bulldog Pride, Yearbook, and Varsity M. H, eliminating the school resource officer position and contract. Reducing dollars spent on instructional supplies and materials and curriculum purchases, and imposing fees for individual and/or community use of modern facilities and fields. Be it further resolved by the Board of Education of the Milton-Union Exempted Village School District that the superintendent and treasurer shall be charged with the responsibility of determining whether additional cost-saving measures can be achieved in the current incoming fiscal years, and act to bring recommendations regarding those matters before the board for its consideration. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please.
Dr. Hinkleman?
Yes.
Mrs. Grunbaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mr. Diaz?
Yes. Okay. B, special education model policies and procedures. Recommend adoption of the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce special education model policies and procedures in their entirety, with exceptions as noted in the attached resolution. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second. And I move to dispense with the verbatim reading of this resolution and make a motion to approve.
Although I do love your reading voice.
It's a lot
Put that in the
tonight.
minutes.
So, Linda, you second it then?
Yeah.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Grunbaugh?
Yes.
Dr. Hinkleman?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mr. Diaz?
Yes. C, Ohio High School Athletic Association membership.
Move to dispense with the verbatim reading of this resolution and make a motion to approve it as written. Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Grunbaugh?
Yes.
Dr. Hinkleman?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mr. Diaz?
Yes.
Motion passed 4-0.
D, additional bank account, recommend approval of opening a second bank account with Star Ohio for the purpose of allowing deposits of matured investments. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Dr. Hinkleman?
Yes.
Mrs. Brumbaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Diaz?
Yes.
E, State FFA Convention, recommend approval of the Milton-Union FFA attending the State FFA Convention in Columbus, Ohio, May 1st, 2025 through May 2nd, 2025. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Dr. Hinkleman?
Yes.
Mrs. Brumbaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mr. Diaz?
Yes. F, FFA Camp Muskingum, recommend approval of the Milton-Union FFA attending the FFA Camp Muskingum in Carrollton, Ohio, June 16, 2025 through June 18, 2025. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Just want to note that, as always, the FFA fully fundraises and covers all of these.
Good point. Roll call, please.
Dr. Hinkleman?
Yes.
Mrs. Brumbaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mr. Diaz?
Yes. G, FFA Officers Retreat, recommend approval of the Milton-Union FFA attending the FFA Officers Retreat at Natural Springs Resort in New Paris, Ohio, June 23rd, 2025 through June 25th, 2025. Do I have a motion?
So moved?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Brumbaugh?
Yes.
Dr. Hinkleman?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mr. Diaz?
Yes. Board reports. A, legislative and student achievement. Linda?
Don't really have, there's a number of things that are being floated around that would potentially affect us, but they're all still, I think, in early stages. So I won't elaborate at this point.
Okay. B, policy update, myself. We're going to have a first reading of some policies here shortly. Other than that, nothing. C, building and transportation, Justin and myself. I don't have anything. Do you have anything?
Nothing other than we do have a gentleman who's been diligently training to become a bus driver. The goal, and I think we're about 99% sure, he will be starting after spring break. So that will get us back to having one for a route and then a spare, essentially a sub driver, floater driver.
Do you have any others potentially in the pipeline?
Not at the moment.
D, MV, CTC, Jim Allball. Do you have anything?
Just attach the minutes in case that any of the board members would like to review, but I don't have anything from Mr. Olmo.
E, Milton-Union Education Foundation, Jess?
No, Brad summed it up really well earlier in his report. But just to put a plug out there for the public, if you would like to sign up for the Bulldog Golf Classic online, go to mueducationfoundation.org. And
It's a good time.
yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Okay. F, Audit and Finance Representative, Justin?
Nothing really to report. I did speak to the auditor for hours today, but there's some legislation that we're watching, but it's kind of always the case.
G, Facility Complex Committee, that is myself. I will defer to Curtis if he has anything.
Well, at this time, we did have Mercer Group out this week. They top dressed and slice seeded the field at Memorial Stadium. So that should start to grow here shortly.
Gotcha.
Other than
Is
that,
there much die-off from last fall?
we did have a little bit just because of the high temperatures and lack of precipitation, but professionals tell me that it should bounce back this month.
All right, moving on, 11, information and discussion items. A, BOE policy update, first reading. Someone want to move to discuss?
There's nothing going on here, it's just the first reading.
Do I have to read all these?
No, you do not.
Okay, so I want to save people.
I would just draw the board's attention to policy 5136. You'll recall a couple of meetings ago, Mr. Ferks and Mr. Watson here were here to talk about student cell phone use. So you'll see a lot of what they discussed and recommended in policy 5136 on personal communication devices. I just don't want that to slip by without our public and without the board members knowing that that's on the table.
Let's see. B, general information and updates. I'm missing something. Do you have anything? I don't know if mine's cut off. Do we have anything under that subsection?
Nope.
Okay. 12, board announcements. WMUT meeting Thursday, March 20th, 2025. 6 p.m. here in the Milton-Union Media Center. And then the next regular board meeting is Monday, April 21st, 2025 at 6 p.m. in the board conference room. 13, executive session. Recommend approval to adjourn to executive session for purposes authorized under the Board of Education Policy 0166 and ORC 121.22 G1 to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, and compensation of an employee or official, ORC 121.22 G4, to prepare for, conduct, or review negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning compensation or other terms and conditions of employment, and ORC 121.22 G5 for a matter required to be kept confidential by federal law or rules or state statutes. There will be no action taken after the board exits executive session. Invitees are Carrie, Brad,
Katie, and just to mix it up, Joe Blackburn.
Ooh, what about Mr. Brackman?
Oh yeah, I don't want to forget Curtis. You're a regular part of the team.
It's like, darn it.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Was there a second?
I need a
Okay,
second.
oh, second.
Roll call, please.
Dr. Hinkleman?
Yes.
Mrs. Brumbaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mr. Diaz?
Yes. That's it. Thanks for coming. You guys need your...